Welcome to another edition of Stay Trendy. I just need to make sure everyone can hear me. You're very much welcome. And to another edition, we host the Stay Trendy webinars once a month by Kendall Consulting. You're very much welcome. We see that lots of people are being admitted. This is going to be another, would I say, trending or exciting webinar, because we have a very interesting topic, and it's one that a lot of us will probably have been going through maybe from the end of last year to the beginning of the year, which is around performance management. Today, we will be specifically speaking about measuring what matters, identifying KPIs for improved performance. My name is Adora Ikomesi. I'm the founder of Kendall Consulting, if we haven't met before. And I just want to welcome everyone here today for another fantastic learning session from Kendall Consulting. So as people are being welcomed in, I would like to recognize where people are coming in from. So feel free to chat. Tell me where you're coming, which part of the world that you're coming in from, and let's prepare to learn. So it's exactly 2 minutes past 1, admitting all people as quickly as we can, but we're good to go. Good to go, good to go. So welcome everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Very, very warm welcome to everyone. So good. I know we're expecting lots of people because we saw that over 500 people signed up to attend this one. So 2 minutes to let people in. Introductions. I'm looking through the chat. Please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're joining in from, and we will kick off the session as quickly as possible. I'm starting to share my screen so that we can kick off. Enjoy the learning. So this particular session, wonderful topic, very, would I say topical, is being hosted or in partnership with D. Brown Consulting. And so I'm going to do my bits and then hand over to D. Brown. So this is a collaboration webinar where each of us will help us with the issue of identifying KPIs for improved performance. After my session, there will be a demo of how to use, the tools that you are well aware of in your organization to help you buttress on what I have laid out for us. So great, good. I just want to share my screen now and make sure that everyone can see my screen. Okay. Good. So yes, I'm looking through the chat to see where everyone is. Okay, so I'm still seeing Lagos. Oh, Anita, hello from Liberia. Yes, oh, joining from Norway. Wow, this is good. You see, this is always exciting. Lagos. Okay, good. Right, so Norway is still the furthest. If there's someone further away than Norway, it will be an interesting one. Right, so just like I mentioned, today is quite, so if you can see my screen, please, can you let me know in the chats? Because it's always the technology. It's the best part and it could be the worst part. If you can see my screen, yes, we have Mary, yes, from Ibadan. So Shola, thank you for saying you can see my screen. Who's looking forward to today's session? I am somehow, because it's interesting that even though you might think I'm facilitating this session, it's always like a refresher. It's always like a learning opportunity. So I really look forward to these sessions, especially the ones where I can fully participate and, just refresh my brain on what I may know and even learn as I am helping others learn. So yes, who's ready to go? Good to go. Oh, we have, Scholastica from Enugu. Olaoluwa from Ibadan. It's good to see. So still, Norway is still the furthest. Yes. Okay. Adeyinka, you're looking forward to today's session. Me too. Definitely, me too. Okay, yep. Nkechi, I am good to see you. So let me start, and because I think for some of us who've been using KPIs for a while, it's still a refresher. And for those of us who are a bit confused, please, I'll encourage you to ask questions. Especially that there are quite a number of those buzzwords. Today, I'm talking about KPIs. But I know that there's quite a number of conflicting lingo from KPIs to metrics to AKRs to KRAs. Today, we're talking about KPIs. Okay, the topic is identifying KPIs. It's a subject that I know people struggle with. But the brilliant thing about this is I try to keep it as simple as possible so that you could identify KPIs wherever you find yourself, whether it's in your job, or whether it's in, anywhere you find yourself. And we'll just talk about what KPIs are. So I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes, and then after I'll hand over to Sodiq of D Brown, and he will just take on from there. And then we'll take questions at the end. So we have a good number of people here already, and we will just proceed. So it's about measuring what matters. And that's the great thing about KPIs. It's really about measuring what matters. I tell people that, when the first thing is, once people tell me they're confused about KPIs, I tell them that the answer is in the name, key performance indicator. And, it may sound a little complicated for people who are not used to using KPIs. You might just hear it, you might think it's lingo. But if we just pause, it will be very clear to us that the answer or the complexity or what we think is complex is actually in the name. So I'm just going to take us a little back just to move forward. This is not on performance management, but definitely I just want to start with, performance management, because that's typically where we're using KPIs. And then just help us with an understanding of KPIs, go through some basics. What are the components of KPI, so that next time when you're setting a KPI, it will be clear to you that, okay, maybe it's incomplete, maybe it's not a good KPI, maybe this is why I struggled. And then just for those who don't know, I mean, it might seem a bit primary, but this is just how I feel is best to help people with the subject matter is, what do they do? Why do we even do them? And, we go into a brief types of KPIs, looking at how do you even identify relevant KPIs, and then common mistakes in identifying your KPIs, and why KPIs are all about alignment with the organization's goals and objectives, and then just examples of some KPIs. So this is probably very easy for some people. However, quite a number of people struggle with this. So without further ado, I'm jumping in right now. Please feel free to engage in the chat. The chat will be very active. Ask your questions. We'll try to answer them at the end of the session. So performance management, this is a buzz, I would say, for people in human resources. It's probably more of a word that we're very used to. People, maybe line managers, other people who manage other people, they do try to get results out of them. They may not call it performance management. But what is the essence of performance management? I'm not going to define performance management or anything here. What I want us to just focus on is, what's the essence? Why performance management? I think the why is very key. Typically, all organizations, and I believe all of us here, either work for an organization, or we do some kind of job, or we do some kind of work. Now, there has to be an essence of that work. And typically the essence is based on why that work was even set up, or the purpose of that job. So every organization has a purpose. There is no company that is formed, for nothing's sake. And typically companies that want performance, they're very deliberate and intentional about their performance, in the sense that, they spell it out. They say, this is what we want to achieve. It's not enough to say, what, I'm a hairdressing salon, or to say I'm a manufacturing firm of, or to say, oh, I'm a brewery, or to say, it's not enough to say, oh, I do this. You have to be very clear and intentional about what you want to achieve. This is also something that we probably do in our lives as well. The more intentional we are about the areas we want to see success, then we're probably going to set goals. So performance management is a process. If you're in human resources, it's one of those key activities that the HR function, or would I say, facilitates, which is a structured process of setting performance, so planning performance, ongoing monitoring of performance, and then, of course, I would say appraising performance or evaluating performance at the end of the period. So performance management in general always has a period of a period of performance. So you plan that, you know what, we're going to do this in a year. For a lot of companies, their performance period is usually, like a whole year, and they have periodic, would I say, reviews, whether it's monthly or quarterly. All that, what's the essence of that process? It's an ongoing structured process of setting, assessing, monitoring, evaluating, it's an ongoing process, but the essence is for performance to happen. And what performance is different for every organization. Of course, if you're for profit, which is what most limited companies would be for, ultimately you have financial goals, but you also have non-financial goals. You have customer goals, you have business process goals, you have stakeholder related goals, so goals are, would I say, they're broad, depending on the organization's mandate or objective, right? So I just felt like I had to do some background on performance, so I don't just get into KPIs, because one thing I know about these sessions is that people are from everywhere and they're at different levels. So it's important. So when next you hear performance management, it's very simple. The great thing about all the topics we're dealing with today is that the answer is in the name. So performance management is about name. That's what performance management, is about. It's just about the name. Right. So performance management, what is it? It's a structured process of setting, assessing, improving, monitoring, all that. But what are KPIs? KPIs, key performance indicators. They are measures, very crucial measures. So the answer again is in the name, key performance indicator. Key performance indicator. So it's an indicator of performance. I know it sounds lame. It just sounds like, this is so, why am I saying it? But that is really the key thing. Or that's the main thing. When you're thinking KPIs, they're actually indicators of performance. How are you? They are crucial measures of performance. They are progress indicators. That's what they are in a nutshell, right? So they're crucial measures within the system. They provide, they tell you how you're doing with regards to progress for a certain performance criteria or objective that you have. That's why they're called key performance indicator. And, maybe I'll take questions so that you don't misunderstand it with metrics or OKRs. So the essence of KPIs is that they provide you with a means of measuring your progress, right? It's an indicator of progress towards a particular goal, right? You can have a metric, a performance metric, which is gauging so a metric or KPIs are also, metrics can be KPIs, but not all metrics are KPIs because not all metrics are key. You can have all sorts of metrics, which are measurements of progress as well. But what makes one key is because it's so crucial to that performance objective that you want. And I liken it to like our dashboards. Think about a car. I just want to use a very simple example. There are different attributes or features of your car. Your car can be red, it has 4 tires, it has, there are just so many things. But the elements that come on the dashboard, not everything makes the dashboard. The elements on the dashboard are the things that are key or crucial to the performance of the car. We don't have color, whereas your car might be red, it might be black, it might be navy blue, but you don't have color. Although even when you're buying a car, color is probably one of the things you're looking out for. However, when you're thinking about the performance of your car, you're not really thinking It's the color of my car. How is the color of my car today? No. But you want to know, where's my fuel? How much fuel do I have left? Definitely. You want to know, the temperature, like, the gauge, like, is this too hot, or is this temperature, is it good? Right? So there are some things that are key. And so that's, in a very simple way, that's one way to look at key performance indicators. They are key metrics. Some people would say that it's a metric, basically. It helps you evaluate performance. It's a measurable value. It tells you how well something is performing in relation to a specific goal. It helps you monitor progress. So KPIs are great when you have areas for improvement. You need to, because it tells you how well you're doing. So you must select your KPIs carefully, because everything is not a KPI. Every metric, or every metric you can collect is not a KPI. So if I want to know how well I'm doing in terms of revenue, I definitely want to be tracking my sales, right? So if one of my big goals was to make 1 billion naira, or $1 billion, or 1 billion pounds in a given period, then my KPIs, what should they be? Those are questions. What would you be tracking to ensure that if it was profits, what would you be tracking, right? Well, how would you, if you had a profit objective, what would you be tracking? Right? If you had a market share objective, what would you be tracking? So those are key questions, right? So think about it as a gauge in the dashboard. Right. So good thing is, and this is something I see with a lot of organizations, one thing about KPIs is that ensure that there are also elements that express what you want to achieve by when. They're like SMART goals as well. You set them like SMART goals in the sense that they have to have a time period. A good thing is that you shouldn't have too many KPIs, because this is one area. Once you're tracking too many things, then it becomes very difficult to focus. So one thing I want to leave us all here with is that KPIs, there's an anatomy of a KPI. There are certain things a KPI should be. So if it's not these things, know that you haven't probably set your KPIs correctly. One, a KPI should have a measure. It should be a measure. It should be something that is measurable. You can measure it. It gets bigger, it gets smaller, like it can be a quantity, it can be a percentage. It's something that is measurable. So if it's vague, you can measure it, then it's not a KPI. I mean, it's definitely you haven't used the right parameters to select. A KPI is also a target, because if you're measuring progress, it must have a target. For you to say I'm measuring progress, then there must be an ideal, or there must be a target that you're going towards, because otherwise you can't measure your progress. And I'm going to give an example after this. A KPI must have a data source. And I think this is where a lot of companies, this is where it might fall flat. If you don't have a data source, it's difficult for you to say, you know what, this is where I get the data of this KPI. Then, it's either you try to ensure you can get the data, or it's probably not a good KPI because you don't know how to get it. You're not clear on its source. And it means that you will probably not be clear on the actual data, and you can't use it to check progress. KPI must have a reporting frequency. Are you checking it weekly, monthly? How often? I wouldn't say KPI shouldn't be, I would just say as a rule of thumb, it shouldn't exceed a month, right? But there can be a frequency. It can be every week. It can be every day. It can be every month, right? So that's KPIs. And then a KPI should have an owner. This is another thing I see in performance management. I mean, I was reviewing something, I just saw team. That's not a KPI. I know, like it's too vague. It's going to cause problems. And I'm not saying that a team cannot own a goal. Like you cannot say, you know what, this is teamwork or anything, but there should be a good KPI has an owner. because somebody has to be accountable. Otherwise, it's like, oh, all of us. And, once you're doing all of us, then you're doing nobody. So all of us is nobody. Right. So this is an example of a KPI. Note that for those people, if you are very familiar with performance management, or even just performance or goals, you'll be familiar with SMART, like setting SMART goals, SMART. So that is SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And some people say smarter. There's an ER, that's right. So this is a KPI. It's a smart one, 1,000 new customers by end of 2024. The owner is of course, VP sales here. So look at it. Let's check it against the criteria. 1,000 is a quantifiable target, right? The end of the year is a time, obviously, is a time frame. The CRM system, it has a data source. We have a CRM, so we can track the data from the CRM. The frequency is monthly, and the owner is the VP sales. So this is, if you have any KPI that you would want to track, please use this and know that this is a very good one. A very good one. Yeah. So you can feel free to put your questions in the chat. Because my session is not too long, I will just keep talking. Keep talking. We'll interact later. So what do KPIs do? Well, I wouldn't want to say it's pretty obvious, but they help you with your most important set of outputs. They help you check progress on that, right? Because, you have a goal, you want to achieve a number, you have, predetermined goals. So they help you, like your heartbeat is checking that you're still alive, right? So it's very useful in your performance management process. It's representing your strategic plan. That's what it should do, really. And that's why you don't pick everything, right? So it's focusing on the most important indicators in your organization. That's why it's called a KPI. It's the most important, yeah. Someone talked about resharing the anatomy slides. Don't worry, you're going to get the slides after this session. Yeah, you get the slides after the session. So what do KPIs do? Yeah, you don't need to take pictures. Don't worry, you get a copy of it. Be sent to everybody who is attending here. So that's on KPIs. Type of KPIs. That's a little technical here, but not too technical. The main types of KPIs are leading and lagging. Leading and lagging indicators. So first of all, KPIs are key performance indicators. So they are those measures that you have selected specifically because they are key for, tracking progress. You had so many measures to pick from, but you picked, these are the most important ones. Those are your KPIs. There's so many things that a cleaner does, but you know what? I'm going to pick this couple of things because these are the key performance. If the cleaner does these 5 things or 4 things, then you know what? I can track their progress because they are on the most important thing. That the cleaner comes in the morning and greets, I expect it from her. I've given her customer service training, but you know what? I'm not going to track her greeting, right? But I'm going to track the fact that, this is cleaned 5 times a day, or that the routine, the checklist of is performed 5 times a day or 4 times a day. So that is very key. So let me just talk about the types of KPIs, 2 main types, leading and lagging, and I'll explain them in as simple terms as I can. The names, the answers are in the names, okay? Leading KPIs, they're kind of like, they predict outcomes. They are not your outcome, but they tell you that, this is coming. They help you predict outcomes. And lagging, they're basically indicators of past performance, right? So your leading indicator predicts your organizational changes. They're not your outcomes. They're not your final outcomes. Okay, final outcome, for example, for you as an individual would be, if you look at your bank statement, right? How much money do you have now in your bank? right? That's a lagging indicator because it shows you the money you have. It shows you, it's based on your saving culture, your expenses. It's a lagging, it happens after, right? It doesn't predict how much you're going to have by end of Q. So whatever you have in your bank account now, right, does not predict what you're going to have by December. It's not a predictor. But I can tell you some things are better predictors. Perhaps maybe you're working towards a promotion. Perhaps you are, if you're someone who works for yourself, so perhaps you're working on some projects already. They haven't paid you, but you're actively already on some projects. So next month, your account may be reading, like, 0 right now. But if you're working on a project, right, that is a better indicator. It's a leading indicator of what your account balance is going to look like next month because you have all these outstanding invoices, right? So leading indicators, they predict, your outcomes. They are not outcome based already. Whereas lagging indicators, they refer to past, they refer to the past, right? It reflects your past outcomes. They might seem like a current in terms of your bank statement is currently 1,000, but they are not an indicator of your current performance. I don't know if I'm clear. So whatever is in your bank account is not an indicator of your current performance. It's an indicator of your past, right? But even though you're reading the results now, it's not. So your financials today now is not. They are lagging indicators. They happen, but they will predict. But leading indicators predict. So, for example, a good leading indicator would be the cost to deliver your good. If you don't take care of your cost, very soon things like your profit and your would be a problem. But it tells you that, you know what, if my costs keep getting high, it's a leading indication that there's going to be an impact on my profits. The same thing. So if you look at the example of a lagging indicator, your profits, things like profits. If we move to HR, so a rule of thumb is try and balance leading and lagging, right? When you're choosing KPIs, don't just choose outcome-based KPIs, choose progress ones as well, or predictive ones. So I'm going to use HR because most of the audience here would be in HR. So they are leading and they are lagging, okay? So let's look at some HR examples, maybe of leading and, let's say, would I say lagging examples. So let's look at, if I was looking at non-HR examples, I would say for health, what's a non-HR example? An example of a leading indicator. Of course, your temperature, your blood pressure, those are leading indicators. And that's why when you go to the hospital, they measure it. For the car, of course, your gauge, your engine, your temperature, those are leading indicators. But what's a lagging indicator? I will tell you, of course, if your engine has knocked, that's a lagging one. If you've had a heart attack, that's a lagging one. But you see, a heart attack is not, it doesn't just happen. You understand? A leading indicator could have been your high BP that you've been managing. Like you've had liver failure. That's a diagnosis of, that's a final. But leading indicators would have been everything. Having a stroke, that's a final diagnosis, but there could have been leading things. So it's the same thing with cars. Your gauge, your temperature, your oil level, they were all leading indicators. However, your engine failure, right? Your tire has blown up. Those are like they've happened at that time, but they were things that could have predicted it. So when you're setting KPIs, mix them, balance leading and lagging. So let's look at HR examples. So examples of leading indicators, of course, things like employee absenteeism. People have been, they've been absent. If you're looking at those figures, it's telling you something is about to happen or something is happening, right? But things like turnover, people who have, or let me just use retention, the amount of people you're able to retain, that's a final figure. But there are certain things that could have indicated that. Your employee satisfaction surveys, your employee engagement surveys, they're definitely indicators of what is yet to happen, right? So if you have low scores, it's indicating, why are you checking those scores? Because it's indicating to you that this is either this company is going to do well or it's not going to do well with regards to retention and even profits. The reason why we chase an engagement so passionately as HR professional is because we know that firms with engaged workforces, do much better. So that's on types of KPIs and in terms of leading and lagging. Just to reiterate what I've said, how do you identify your KPIs? Use the SMART method. Tie them to your strategic goals, right? First of all, what are KPIs going to be used for? It's going to use progress. I mean, you're going to use it to gauge progress of your most important goals. Make sure your KPIs are SMART, keep them clear-cut, check the anatomy of a KPI, make sure it has, like a data source, an owner, those things will help you ensure that your KPIs are relevant. These are some of the common mistakes that I see. Once your objectives are not clear, then the KPIs will suffer. So you need clear objectives. And when you set clear objectives, then you have KPIs that can measure those objectives. So if there's lack of clarity on the objective side, the objective is very vague, then of course, setting the KPI will be even more difficult. There's some metrics that we call vanity metrics. And vanity metrics, they just look good. People are just measuring, I'm not saying that cash is not important or revenue, but metrics are better. Like metrics like revenue per employee, those are better than just having, even revenue per employee could even be a vanity metric in the sense that, how much profit is this firm really make? So avoid things that just look good on paper. Choose metrics that really tell you how well your firm is doing, not things that look good. I'm not saying that your firms things cannot look good for your firm, but just choose things that really show you your progress. Another problem is too many KPIs. The inability to measure, lack of measurability. And once you can't measure it, there's a problem. So find out, why can't I measure this KPI? That's not even a good criteria in the first place if you can't measure it. But let's also not be, because sometimes I see people give up because they can't measure it easily. No, but sometimes that's an indicator that it's not a good KPI, but sometimes it's just an indicator that we haven't really thought it through. So that can be a problem. And then ignoring leading indicators, just having KPIs that are lagging, outcome-based only, and not progress-based. Because remember, the leading indicators predicts the lag. So I want to know those things that lead to my lag. I'm not just going to be looking at outcomes like market share or revenue or, how many of this I was able to do or productivity. I want to know all the things that lead to productivity. I want to know things like engagement. I want to know, other things, absenteeism. I want to know those things because those things help me. They tell me what's yet to come. If I have bad engagement figures and, my outcomes are looking great, I just know that it's only a matter of time. My leading indicators tell me how well I'm going to do. If I have invoices that are unpaid, I think I really want to know that instead of thinking I don't have any money and being depressed when I know I'm so busy. I just know it's a matter of time. But if I keep looking at it, it's just like eating right. If you're eating right, you're on the right track. That's a leading indicator of whether your diet is working or not. If you stuck to it, you're eating right, you're going to be healthy. But if you look on the scale, you might not be happy because it doesn't seem to be shifting. But if you eat right, you exercise, you're likely to get results. Even if it's not showing in the scale, your skin, eventually, you're going to have a whoosh. There'll be 1 week you step on the scale and phew, it goes. But if you kept on looking at the figure on the scale, you would probably be discouraged because it takes time to catch up with all the good habits that you have started putting in place, like eating right and exercising. So I just try to use examples that I'm hoping we would just learn from. So this is just a quick slide, just to wrap up before the Q&A and the demo, is just understand that your KPIs must outline with your organization's goals and objectives. It's all about alignment. You start at the corporate level. If you're a big organization, if you're a team, then of course you just start at team level. So always align, have objectives, KPI. There must be a line of sight. I think that's something that's very clear. A lot of times, some of the problems I see with the organization is there's no line of sight from the individual to, so there has to be a line of sight. People need to see, what they do and how it contributes to the organization. So that line of sight, you can see the value of your contribution to organizational success. So that is very, very key. So from the corporates, of course, you can break it down to the departmental, and then you break it down to the units or then the individual. If it's a small team, then of course, everybody already has a very clear line of sight. But one thing that is very clear is you have organizational goals, you rank your goals, you identify relevant KPIs, you set clear targets, and you review and adjust regularly. So example KPIs, like I said, you're going to get all the slides. These are just different types of KPIs that you could have within your, organization. And just whatever department you're in, I hope that, with this, I might be speaking quickly. I do tend to speak a bit quickly, but I'll answer questions at the end. So I just want to give some time for, D. Brown Sodiq of D. Brown to show us what can be done, especially with tracking or identifying our KPIs, maybe more practically in the workplace. So just KPIs, like I've said, very crucial part of performance management systems. They're common mistakes, but the answer is in the name, key performance indicator. So just allow your goals, set your goals, make them clear, and ask yourself for each goal, what is a good indicator? Once you ask it in that simple way, how can you see, if I wanted to check performance of this goal, right? What would be a good way? If my performance objective was to ace an exam, what would be a good indicator of progress, right? What should I be checking? What is likely, what should I be checking if I want to ace an exam? So what would be the key performance indicator? Definitely how much time I spend studying. It's a no-brainer. I mean, that's one, it's a no-brainer. If you're not studying, right? So that's why I want to be checking. People who do well in school, they study. So I'm not just going to get an A without study. So I want to be tracking study hours, right? Yeah, because it's definitely a KPI for that. So, so those type of measures, the same thing, and that's why I use the example of those things, those progress measures are definitely always very good ones. So the leading, balance it, don't just think lagging. And a lot of people also get discouraged with lagging measures because they don't encourage, they don't motivate. Because when you just see the figure, you just think, oh, we're not doing well. So the leading ones are very, very important because they make people even see, because it's more activity-based, and most people can relate to the leading indicators because it's probably the things they're doing at work, but when they just see the final, like profit, like, like it just looks like it can be a bit discouraging. But the leading side, yeah, it's easy to relate it more to the work that people are doing. Okay, I'm supposed to make this amount of calls a day. As long as I make the amount of calls, I'm doing okay. But if you're checking sales, the person is just probably thinking, oh God, I'm not doing well. But if your target is 100 calls a day and you're making 100 calls a day, at least you get some, you should be rewarded. You fulfill the key criteria, which is call 100 people, right? So there should be some semblance of performance indicated there. So that is the my bit on performance. I know taking a bit more time on this, and I want to hand over to Sadiq. There are people in the waiting room. Okay. Right. Okay, so Sadiq, are you ready with your presentation? I hope I've made it easier for you to land. You can unmute. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Yes, sorry. Okay, good, fantastic. So over to you, Sadiq.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, it was such an interesting and eye-opening presentation. Thank you.
Thank
And in
you.
fact, you have made life very easy for me. So I'll just
Okay. Okay, good.
I'll just write on what you say so far, then
No
we'll
problem.
continue from there. So if you can allow me and to share my screen as well.
Sure. So I think we just make you a co-host.
Still waiting for it.
Okay, can you share?
No, I can't share it.
Okay, so let me find your name, Sadiq, and I'll just
No,
make you.
Development Consulting. I belong to it. Development Consulting.
Okay. Okay, it's the Brown, right? Okay,
Yes, yes, yes.
I see. So let me just yeah, over to you. Just, yep, I've done it now.
Okay, send request.
Yeah, just check.
Okay, yes, I think I'll be. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Perfect.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, so without spending more time on this, so my name is Sadiq Yusuf. I'm a training leader at Diva Consulting. So I'll just be taking you through the technical aspect of what I just been discovered right now. All right, so when we talk about leadership and we try to measure performance, we understand that for all organizations, the goal of all organizations is to make profits, right? And when you're trying to make profits, you find depending on the amount of profit that you're actually looking at, you find out that just one person cannot do this job. So not the CEO, not the MD, not the manager. We need a lot of people to come in to do the job so that we can arrive at the same goal. And from what I learned from what you just discussed here is the goal of every leader, every organization is to achieve a goal. So we set a goal and everything we do should work towards that goal. And in achieving the goal, we also understand that we cannot do this alone. So we need people and we need the goal, right? So we are now we are stranded in between people and goal. So how do we motivate our people? How do we influence our people to achieve this particular goal? So, and as much as we're trying to achieve our goals, one thing that's very important is people needs to be tagged along. And these people needs to be at the right, they have to perform optimally. So now for the goal of HR and yes, HR and the likes is, so how do we make sure that in achieving our goal, we do not lose people in between? And you find out that for most organizations, you have HR from time to time, they dish out some surveys just to get our how we are faring on the job. And that is a typical example of what I'm going to be working on today. And for most of us, we have different means by which we get a survey or a questionnaire. So can we just put in the chat if we have, so just type in the chat if you are one of the ways that you would normally use to collect data from employee or colleague in the office. Let's type in the chat. All right, so while I'm waiting for people to drop that, so we find out that for across board, people use surveys, yes, so online surveys. Thank you very much. So we survey, and we different tools to get this done. Some of us use Microsoft Forms. We use different things. So all these we are gathering data about our colleague, our Google Forms. Thank you, about our employee or our colleagues. Yes, and just like we need that data is going somewhere. So what do we now do at the end of collecting that data across board? So it is such that we get this data, we know how things are currently and how people are feeling currently on the job, and if there's a way we need to improve on. Right, so we're going to be looking at a typical survey for a particular organization. So here we get it. So the survey is just, so we get different metric, different information about people So we want to know the department, where they're coming from, the satisfaction on the job. So their level of satisfaction, and HR generally, you just have on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, rate your level of satisfaction, involvement, and your relationship with your coworker. And one important thing is work-life balance. So these are the data sources that she talked about earlier on. So all these, we get the data, and at the end of the day, the data is sitting somewhere. So how do we now make meaning from this data? So easily we can use any tool. But today I'm going to be using what we are very familiar with, which is our normal Excel. So before you can get an insight from the data that you just got from your colleagues, then you need access to the data. And with Excel, regardless of whatever you use in collecting this data, with Excel, you can actually access any data source of your choice. Yes, any data source of your choice. So just like in Excel, when you go to on the data tab of Excel, then there's something we call the get data. So this get data is where we have only data source that you're looking at. It might even be in a PDF format. Your data might be in an Excel workbook or a CSV format, JSON file, PDF, or it's even a folder or a SharePoint file. So in a database, whatever it is in the database, whether it's SQL Server, IBM, Oracle, SAP, you can use Excel to connect to all these data sources of your choice, regardless of where you're getting this from. Whether it is Google, Edis, and the like, anything you're connecting from, you can connect, you can connect to the data. And once you have access to the data, in some cases, the way we get this data is not necessarily, it doesn't give us the opportunity of analyzing the data immediately. We need to do some, adjustment, 1 or 2 adjustments to the data. So that is what we term as data cleaning. You clean the data for it to put it in a structured format so that you can now analyze it. Now, we all know in Excel, we can easily analyze our data using pivot table. So click and click and click, easily your data is ready. But then there is a challenge with pivot table, and that challenge is that pivot table has a limitation, and the limitation is that it can only do a report on it. You can use pivot table to do reports on a single table at a time. So in a case where you have your data coming from different data sources, you have different tables, then there's going to be an issue using Excel pivot table to do the reports. But then we have a tool that we can use in Excel to do this report. And that tool is what is referred to as Power Pivot. That tool is what is referred to as Power Pivot. So Power Pivot is an add-in in Excel. It's an add-in in Excel that can be used to connect to as many tables as possible. And if you look at the data that I've connected to the data, do all the background work, you will see that what we have as many, okay? Right? So we have as many tables as possible, and we connect everything using Power Pivot. All right. Now, let me show you all the tables that we have. Now you can see I've connected to all these tables now, link them together, thereby creating a relationship between all the different tables that we have. Now, once you are done with it, then the next thing is you can now proceed to do your report across all the tables. Now, what are the key metrics that you intend to bring out from this data? So you need to decide on that. Once you have identified it and you've connected these tables together, then you can now use what? Pivot table to do the report in Excel. And at the end of the day, so directly from here, so you can use pivot table. Then it's asking us I can use new worksheet. Once I ask to do new worksheet, then it opens a new worksheet for me. Then I can start doing my reports. For example, let's say I want to, I'm interested in, I want to know the job involvement, the performance, the work-life balance, and the likes, because those are the data that we have in our form that we deploy to that was deployed. Now, another thing there is, in most cases, it is not even easy for us to get that insight directly. You need to do some calculation. So that will not give you. So by clicking and clicking, then we can easily what get that. For example, I want to know if I come to the employee table now and I'm looking at the age group, right? And to know, okay, age group. So what is the job involvement or their performance? We're looking at performance by age group, or we are looking at work-life balance by age group and the likes. So all these, if you check our this, we only have numbers representing them. So how do we quantify this? How do we do so? How do we manipulate this data such that we can give us insight from that kind of data? So we have another tool in Excel that is called the Power Pivot, which is the data analysis expression. So we call it DAX. So you can write DAX because you have leverage on Power Pivot to connect these tables together. So you can see leverage on DAX to do some calculation that are not readily available in your current data, that are beyond the scope of you just click and click and click to get your report. So DAX. So when I go to Power Pivots now, so we can write measures. So these measures give you room to write calculations of your choice. And then you can leverage on such calculation to create your report. If I go on to new measures, then I proceed. Okay, what am I trying to do? What am I looking at? Okay, if I say, okay, I want to see job involvement. Let me see performance. How to rate their performance on the job or their work-life balance and the like. So I need to say, okay, use the calculate function. There are a lot of advanced function I can use. And I will say controls this. Yes, looking at our survey table, we have a table that we call the survey. Count the number of rows that we have there. Then go to all the responses and give me what we have, the attributes. What attributes I'm looking at? The performance rating. So you rate your level of performance on the job. Okay. So these and many more. Now I've written the what? Yeah, I've run a calculation on it. I can see check if my formula is correct. Is it correct? Yes, it's correct. It's telling me that what there is no error. Then I can add this to my table. So this initially is not in the data that I brought in, but because I'm leveraging on the power of DAX, I can easily do this. Then my report will be ready. So these are the different measures that I've written to make our work very easy. So when we check the job involvement, and it's going to be telling me, so by percentage, now if it's okay, I want to see this data now by percentage. So percentage of the grand total. So what percentage of the workforce have fully immersed in this job? The few included in the job. So then we can now proceed to create my reports. And in creating my report, I can start, okay, I want to see from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. Then I sort this data. Easily now, I can see that what employees that are between the age of 30 to 40, they have the highest involvement in terms of involvement. So we can test it by their work-life balance. In fact, we can check what the percentage of the workforce that are married compared to those that are not married, how happy are they on the job, or even their distance from the distance to the office. So do they encounter enough offset before they get to the office? So how close are they to the office? These and many more are those things that we need to consider when we want to check the performance of employee on the job. And we can create as many reports as possible. Then by leveraging on using these DAX to create this, writing advanced calculation. It's not only in HR alone. It can be in sales. It can be in operations, in different fields. You do this, then at the end of the day, you now have an extensive report that is telling you how your employee are doing. And as we all know, for HR, you do this often enough. It's not just one-off exercise. we'll do it often enough to monitor our progress. Okay, in the first quarter, we try to know, okay, how our colleagues are doing on the job. In the second quarter again, so then we can start comparing, okay, this quarter compared to last quarter. So how far are we? So in terms of rating, so we're looking at what our performance rating, excellent. That means a lot of people give themselves excellent in their performance, outstanding. Then we talk about relationship on the job. Then most people say it's only getting better. It's only getting better. The involvement of the job, the largest number of people are saying what? They're highly involved. Or how many set of people do overtime? So in terms of working people, so how many people work what? Oh, after working hours, we can see the analysis as well. Then work-life balance. All these are the metrics we are considering, right? Then we can now further drill down to different aspects. We can check in terms of the gender. Okay, in gender format. So in general, let's see for female. Let's see all this analysis to for the female folks alone, and let's see how it is working for them. This way is to filter my reports. You can see it filters my report and I see what is going on. Okay, how do we hire these people? So is it those the contract type, those who are the full-time staff and compared to the contract staff, let's check their performance as well. So if I click on this, so this allows us to drill down further based using different criteria. So when I leave it on contract, now we can see a lot of contract staff have a higher percentage rating of performance rating, involvement, their overtime, and the likes. When I check the full-time staff, the full-time staff, then it filters down the report as well. Or we even want to go down to department by department level. So we know if there's any issue coming from any department, then we know who to talk to. So if I go to the sales department now, you see, it helps me to filter my report and I can see. So this exercise has been done now. Subsequently, we don't even need to do this report all over again. All we need to do is refresh and new data because we already have access to where this data is coming from. Once you refresh, then you have the updated report. Then we can now start comparing from Q1 to Q2, how are we doing? Q3, Q4, and so on. So we measure and monitor our performance right from the beginning of the year down to the last quarter of the year and see how are we doing culture-wise, how are our people doing on the job. Because once we know this, it also helps in making decisions that will that make the employee to feel included, to feel part of the organization, and they will in turn be more productive, then will eventually reach the estimated or the targeted goal of the organization. So different parameters that I can actually use to filter. Okay, in terms of how we hire these people, those ones that we report ourselves or the ones that we outsourced, how are they doing on the job? So you filter down, you can see what is going on based on what each person feels. So aside, this is just general overview of what we did. Then we can also proceed. We can have as many pages of report as possible. So I've created a button here that will take me to the next page. Once I click on this, then it brought me here. Then I see what is going on. So by department now, what's the job involvement by department, and also segregating the populace based on gender. You can see that sales executive, in terms of job involvement, they are doing so well. And human resources. So what do we need to do on this? What exactly is going on? And then what's it called? The performance rating by department. You can see human resources have higher rating. But in terms of job involvement, they are the least. So what can be the cause of it? Can it be the population or whatever? So we need to drill down to understand what is going on. Then we can now start making some insightful decisions that will both affect productivity at work and also the overall well-being of our colleagues at work. So you can actually analyze the data. You can use Excel to do this job. You can use Power BI. You can use any business intelligence tool. So I'm using Excel just that you know that you don't even need to do extra. You don't need to buy any software. You do a form, you create a form, you deploy it, you can connect to the back end of that form and what analyze it. As people are entering, you are seeing an updated data. So these and many more. So you can do a lot of analysis, a lot of analysis. You can see by in terms of distance from the office, people that are near to the office have higher performance because maybe depending on where the office is. So probably others spend a lot of time in the traffic before they get to the office compared to those who just wake up 7:30, by 7:45 they are done, and before 8 o'clock they are in the office already. So these and many more analysis are what you can do with your data. So because of time, I'm going to be stopping here. And if you have any question, please, you can proceed to ask. Thank you. So over to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much with that, Sadiq. Thank you so much. Yes, it's been a packed one. Usually the sessions are not this long. We should be ending right now. So I think if there's any questions from anyone, and then maybe I saw quite a number of questions. If you can stay, I know that people have things that they need to do. Fine. We will share the recording with everyone. And if you're not able to stay, then so I'm going to look through the chat. Please feel free if you have any questions on my session or Sadiq's session. Basically, he's just showing us that we can track a lot of these metrics on, using everyday tools like Excel. So you don't need to have anything fancy. You can actually use Excel to do this, right, Sadiq? I mean, and if you need help in Excel, D. Brown can help you with that. I think that's the key thing, right? So if you need to create something, it can easily be done. So that is it. Sadiq, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be sure that you were.
Yeah, so we have different places that I can take in-house in different consulting.
Yes.
Engagement,
Yes.
and consulting. Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to be sure that you could hear me, and that's very important. So let's take any questions that you may have. I'm just going to go through the chats. See, I know someone is asking for your file. Yeah, someone is asking for your file. Somebody's asking me, what's the main difference? I knew this one was going to come up. Between KPIs and OKRs, are they both mutually exclusive or can be mutually reinforcing? I think I like the way you phrase your question. I would say that they are mutually reinforcing because OKRs, the answer is in the name. You understand? It's about objectives and key results. So think about it. It's the objectives and key results. People typically use OKRs when they want to communicate what's important to the organization. Okay, so we have objectives like increase market share. We have objectives like, to improve customer satisfaction. So your OKRs are clear. That there are key result areas, the results you want. What results do you want to see? But they are not indicators. It's not telling you how you're going to track it. So it's telling you these are the areas we want to focus on. It's telling everybody, put your eyes on this thing. This is what we're going to be focusing on in terms of key results areas. But your KPIs are actually tracking performance of an objective, probably an OKR. That's why I like when you say, mutually reinforcing. Yes, so it's just your key results. What are the results you want to see? Yes, I want to see results in this area. I want 50 to open in 50 new cities. I want, to see client engagement go up by, this, that kind of thing. However, how are we tracking it? That's what KPIs. How do we know progress? Then we need to select our KPIs there. Okay. How do you as an employee manage a no defined KPI due to a new role not occupied prior? No, you have to set KPIs for a new role. So a new role will have a job description. Everything in the job is not strategic, right? So the most strategic elements of the job, which relates to the, key, that's why I said line of sight, so that you can be clear on your contribution to the key results that the organization is trying to achieve. So, using a job description, and a job description has to be well written, or using the knowledge of the job, you can set the KPIs. And that's part of why this session is being held. So know how to set KPIs. Look at the role and its contribution to the organization's objectives, and ask yourself, these are the key goals of this role, the key objectives of this role, set them, and then have KPIs to manage progress so that you know whether you're doing well or not. So that's on KPIs. I'm just going through the chat. So it's challenge cascading KPIs down to your subordinates. You have to be very clear of, you've got KPIs, then how are those people, associates, how are they contributing to your success if you're cascading, right? So you have a team KPI and you're clear on that. So each of them have different roles, and everybody's KPI can't be the same. It's based on my contribution to the goal. So you're looking at this, you have 3 different team members, they have 3 different goals, set KPIs for them relating to what is key. First of all, identify what are the strategic elements of their job, which elements have alignments and line of sight with the contribution or the goal that you want to achieve. Then pick and select areas of it. So you must set your objectives clear first before you set KPIs, because the indicator of performance is from an objective. You don't just start picking KPIs, and that sometimes is how when people struggle, because you just start trying to pick KPIs. KPIs for what? There has to be an objective. There's a result that you want, and then the KPI is to track your progress for that result. So get it right. When people start with KPIs, like you're starting from backwards, right? You don't just jump into it. A KPI is for something. It's for performance. So what performance do you want? Then we can identify KPIs for that performance. How do we measure customer satisfaction in a community pharmacy business? What is customer satisfaction for your customers? How do you define customer satisfaction? Who defines customer satisfaction, right? A good way of defining customer satisfaction would be on, the criteria. What are the elements? For example, customer satisfaction is encompassing. It's not one thing, okay? A quick way you can do it. Sometimes you see people with saying, how do you feel today? So they're just getting like, how do you feel today? Maybe either employee or customer. Happy face to, on a scale of 1 to 5. But if you do a good customer service survey, customer focus survey, it will tell you also. So if customer satisfaction is a composite, it's not a single thing. So if you can allow your customers fill a survey, then fine, maybe a quick survey on key elements of satisfaction, maybe speed, maybe reliability, elements of quality, maybe the pharmacist, it's a composite, right? Customer satisfaction is not usually, or if you want to do a quick one, then you can just tell them to rate you based on perception when they come in or something like that, or their interaction with you. But typically, customer satisfaction is a composite. So the results of your customer satisfaction survey would be how you would measure that. And you don't have to have a large one. It could be just a couple of questions. It could be 5 questions. It could be 10 questions. Right. We have a question on an L&D dashboard for your company. What are the best KPIs? What's the performance that you want from the L&D? There's nothing like an L&D dashboard. Like, what performance do you want? Is it the L&D function? So what do you want to, what is performance? How do you know L&D is performing? Is it the competency level of the staff? You could have leading and lagging. Obviously, you want to see things like outcomes like competency development and competency levels. Then you want to have leading indicators like number of, like the completion rate of individual development plans, or, the completion ratio of, maybe number of trainings attended. So number of training attended is just an indicator. It doesn't tell you that the competence has changed, right? So you want a mixture of things, but you have to be clear. What's the role and what's the goal of the L&D function? So that what is performance? When you measure performance, when you are clear on what performance is, then you can set KPIs. Until you have clarity on what performance looks like, then KPIs will be a struggle. For leaders in compliance, such as legal, setting KPIs can be challenging in organizations focused on sales that may not prioritize proactive legal risk management. How can we effectively address it? I think we have to look at every department for its performance. In legal, is it litigation? Is it cases? Like everyone's performance is not the same. People say sales is easy because it's about buying and selling. But the truth is that every role or department was set for an objective. If you're not sure, for example, you can ask your boss. You can ask your boss, you know what? What is success? What's my performance? How do I know I'm doing well? You can ask the person, the recipient of your would I say, your activities, right? I'm just giving that as a lay example, because performance, every role has performance objectives. If not, the role would not exist. So we might say some are easier, but the truth is that no, if we sit down and say, you know what is the objective of this job? Why was it created in the first place? It will be very clear what the objectives of the role are, and it will become clearer what the KPIs should be. So yes, it may seem like some roles have it's easier, but we just have to, would I say, have the mindset that KPIs are about performance and progress towards performance. If we can sit down quietly and ask ourselves, what does performance for this role mean, or this objective, this department, then KPIs will become easier for us. Always think about the name, key performance indicator. The answer is in the name. Chigozie, how does one get lower level staff to understand how their job contributes to the corporate strategy? Most time they see their jobs as a means to just earn money. How do you ensure that the mindset of no matter how hard I work, it is the organization that benefits more than me? It's communication. That's the truth. If people don't see a line of sight, they can't see how I'm doing contributes there. It's communication. And then, of course, it's backed with action. If somebody don't, like, for example, what you've just described here is an attitude of, I work hard and the organization benefits more than me, then it's what the organization must be communicating, in the sense that maybe your performance management system doesn't have a clear reward element, which is when I perform, what happens? It's not very clear, because remember, performance management doesn't just end at evaluating, it's extended to the actions that happen based on the performance that was achieved. So, that could be something that you want to address. So I'm not keeping anyone waiting, because I know that, we have gone over our time. I'm just trying to take questions here. But I think those are more than, we will share the recording. Yeah, I think those are all the questions I see. I just want to, thank everyone for taking out